All right. It is time. Are you guys ready?
Are we stretching? Or are we?
No. We're recording.
Going right into it.
See, I almost thought he was doing the intro there.
Yeah.
All right.
All
you
right,
guys,
all
are you ready?
All right. No, we're recording right now. This is recording.
But I mean, when this is its own episode for non-Patreon backers, will they hear any kind of bumper at the front?
Sure. Hey, this is Ryan Higgins from the Comics Conspiracy Kids. This is Ryan from the Comics Conspiracy Podcast. We're recording a very special, little late, end of the decade review here from the year 2010 to 2019. If you think the decade is 2011 to 2020, well, I don't know, fuck off. We're gonna, I mean, technically that is also a decade. It is just not the decade.
But when you start counting a list of numbers...
I started 0.
You do?
No.
So those cars in the parking lot, that one's 0.
No, but they didn't start the calendar at 0. They're like, we started at 1. So there you go.
But rather than dismissing them, let's have a big tent and welcome those who count the decade from 0 and from 1. Don't be a Bernie Sanders supporter.
Listen to this podcast.
Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone.
Okay, listen to this podcast next year. Then how about that? Anyway, we are going to talk about the wonderful 2010s, the aughts, the teens, the teens, the 20-teens.
Yeah, because we're currently in the roaring 2020s.
My name is with the amazing economy the way it is, the roaring 20s. We've clearly no lesson will be learned from last century's 20s, of course.
Nope.
Let's see what happens.
History is
When's November?
rhyming.
November's really soon, guys. Really fucking soon. Remember, we're not recording an episode that week, so just,
You've already marked this out on your calendar?
Oh, I fucking marked this out on my calendar 4 years ago. Are you kidding me?
No episode November.
No, he stated,
no.
He stated 4 year
Every 4 years, we will not be recording an episode on Tuesday on election night.
Okay.
No, I cannot. I can't.
No,
Okay.
Well, no. You know what we
Not
should
now.
do?
Not anymore.
We should just record one and do live commentary.
Like we did. We did Geekbox. When Geekbox used to be on Tuesday. This is a fabulous start to this podcast. We did Geekbox before. We did record on Tuesdays, and like we'd be fucking sweating it while we were recording. And I'm like, I can't do this anymore. Like not the last couple.
But see, you could make this year Comics Conspiracy's election night coverage where we just watch the returns.
And get fucking drunk and just screaming and stuff.
Yes.
Goddamn Montana, you son of a bitch.
Yes.
Okay, here at Comics Conspiracy headquarters, we are ready to call Kentucky with 87% of precincts reporting.
Wonderful.
We could do it.
Yeah, see?
No.
They can make it a Patreon tier.
No.
Yeah.
The Patreon people are getting this early. That's all they deserve. Okay, they don't want that.
Yeah,
okay.
and this preamble has made it worth all of their Patreon investment. You're welcome, everybody.
The worst is the people that waited a week for this. It's way worse than they thought. Wow, cool. I totally closed all my notes. Excellent.
Right.
So give me a second to reopen this. This is going...
So why don't you, while you're fumbling for your notes, introduce what we're talking about?
So my name is Ryan Higgins. To my left.
Brock Sager.
Kevin.
And Charlie.
Yeah, sorry. Like, we are literally just recording 2 episodes in a row, so pardon this odd
This is going
opening.
to be an overview of the years 2010
Yes,
to 2019.
Which is the decade.
And everybody has assembled a list of 5, give or take,
Yeah.
titles. This is not meant to be a comprehensive, here are all the good comics of this decade.
Correct.
It's more like we're going to shout out things we especially liked.
Now, before we get to our especially liked, I did a little bit of research. Okay.
Yeah, he was doing this yesterday.
I did a little bit of research.
I was here, so
Now, of course, there's going to be a little possibility of error here because I didn't count some stuff. I might have missed some stuff, but I believe I'm pretty confident in this list. The 2010s was the explosion of superheroes into popular culture, right? So we don't just have comic books in 2010. We also have movies and television shows. A fucking shit ton of movies and television shows. Okay. I went there and looked at all the comic book movies and comic book TV shows. Now, there are a couple that I took out that I didn't count because there was stuff like I didn't do any of the direct-to-DVD stuff. I just did theatrical run. television shows were like full seasons, not just like a little one-off weird thing.
Just a pilot that was made.
Yeah, nothing like that.
You better have the tick on your list. That's all I'm saying.
The tick is on there.
The tick is on there.
There were a handful of movies where I'm like, okay, I mean, technically this might be based on something, but like this got such a weird limited release.
Where did you put Cowboys versus Aliens?
I mean, it's in here. That is like the biggest asterisk of all of them. Okay, but it is on this list. If this thing got no major release, if the graphic novel is like, okay, look, this was not really anything.
This was a Kickstarter.
I didn't put it on here. I took some of the more odd, like the really oddball stuff off. And then I didn't. There was a couple TV shows where again I'm like, this is not. I'm not. I can't really count this. So there's a quick list, but I have some comic stuff in here too. I went through every decade. I went through every year in the decade. I got the number one comic book, put them in order, and copies sold. And there is an asterisk next to one of these here. So we're gonna do two games. One, I think you, Brock. I think you saw some of my movie and TV stuff. So sit this one out because
no.
But I mean number wise and everything like that. How many?
Like, how much they made?
No. So we're gonna do movies, TV shows, then comics. I'm gonna have you guys do some guessing games for me, and I'll go through these lists here real quick. How many comic book movies were released between 2010 in the theaters? Okay, theatrical releases. And again, it's possible I missed a couple because they're like oddball. Like,
do we get any kind of a hint on the number range here? Is it multiple choice? Is it over under?
What's the spread? What's the over under?
Give me a number and I'll tell you over under.
Okay, released theatrically in those 9 years.
Yes,
or 10 years.
10 years. Yeah.
46.
Okay, more than that.
Whoa,
less than 100. Okay, so double digit.
It would be some good radios if we just sat here and had to guess until we got all of them.
Fine. 73.
Oh, very close. 71. I counted 71 theatrical movies.
Now, could you looked them up, obviously, but do you think you could have named 50 of those without checking the internet?
50, yes. 71, probably not. No.
What is the most obscure one that you found that we probably would never have guessed?
Well, like I said, there's a couple that were on the list that I looked at were like, no one's ever heard of this movie or comic book. Like, this is not a thing. Like, this was some, like, super, like, maybe it technically had a theatrical run at, like, one theater, but this is, like, not. So I didn't count that stuff. I counted, like, the real, and I'll tell you what the one that everyone would have forgot on this list, and it's from 2013. Okay, we'll get to that in a second. 2010, Iron Man 2, Jonah Hex, Kick-Ass, The Losers, Red, and Scott Pilgrim. Those are okay.
Yeah, I think we would have all remembered all of those.
I think so. I
wouldn't necessarily remember the year.
No.
And therefore, I'm not sure I would have been able to place it even for sure in this decade,
I remember enjoying Red. I never read the comic, but like Red was really good.
It's 2011. Captain America, Cowboys and Aliens. Now there's your asterisks.
Yeah.
Because that's a bunch of bullshit. You guys all know the story behind this movie and the comic, right? No. Green Lantern, Thor, and X-Men First Class. Okay. Couple good ones.
These are the top ones, right?
This is everything.
That's
everything for the year.
All right.
2012.
So wait. So in 2 years, we've had 10 movies.
2012: Amazing Spider-Man, Avengers, Dark Knight Rises, Ghost Rider: Spirits of Vengeance, and Dread. So again, there's some.
Yeah.
We're at are we at 16 now?
Some real. That's a 15. No, there was 6 in 2010, 5 in 2011, and 5 in 2012.
Yeah, so 16.
2013. Now I'm gonna read all of them except for the one that I think everyone will forget. 2013 is Iron Man 3, Kick-Ass 2, Red 2, Man of Steel, Thor: Dark World, and The Wolverine. The one that I think I don't think a single person would remember was R.I.P.D.
Oh, that was a comic?
That was a comic. Yeah,
that's right.
Yep.
God, did anybody here see that?
Yes.
What was the first movie on our list?
Not in the theaters.
Iron Man 3.
Okay. Yeah. And then Kick-Ass 2.
Kick-Ass 2. Yep.
I did not see it in the theaters, but I did see it when it came out on disc.
Wow.
So that was another 6?
Yeah, like, I don't know, 7.
6, 7, okay.
Yeah. 2014, 300 Rise of an Empire. I never saw that. That's the 300 sequel. Big Hero 6, which again, extremely loosely based on a Marvel comic, but technically a Marvel comic. Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy, Sin City: A Dame to Kill For. Fuck, who even remembered that thing got made? Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man 2, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and X-Men: Days of Future Past. Ooh, that's like the 50-50 of like the best and worst movies of the decade, right? Like, there's some good gems in there, and then there's some absolute just fucking dogs in that list.
There's 8 books.
2015, pretty quiet. Ant-Man, Age of Ultron, Fantastic Four, and Kingsman.
Yeah.
So
that's the Josh Trank FF.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. Fantastic Four and Kingsman. So
I still haven't seen that FF.
I haven't either. I can't. You and I can jump over the waterfall sometime.
2016, Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, Captain America: Civil War, Deadpool, Doctor Strange, Suicide Squad, TMNT: Out of the Shadows, and X-Men: Apocalypse. Now, please yell at me if I've missed a huge one on this list. Any listeners, if they're like, you fucking forgot, this major movie, because these we're all blurring together after a while going through this list. 2017, Atomic Blonde, which is based on The Coldest City, which is a graphic novel.
That was a good movie.
Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Justice League, Kingsman: Golden Circle, Lego Batman Movie, My Friend Dahmer, Spider-Man: Homecoming, Thor: Ragnarok, Wilson, Logan, and Wonder Woman. What a fucking stacked year.
Wow, wait a minute. Wonder Woman, Ragnarok, and Guardians 2 were all the same year?
Yeah.
So that shitty theater where my feet were stuck on the floor was the same year. I would have guessed that was like 3 years in between those things.
2018.
No, that was the year before.
No, he just read Guardians 2.
Oh, but I thought Suicide Squad you had sticky.
No, that was Guardians 2.
Again, it's either the dates around there. I hope I didn't make a mistake here. No. 2018, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Aquaman, Avengers: Infinity War, Black Panther, Deadpool 2, I Kill Giants, Teen Titans Go to the Movies, and Venom. 2018. And then 2019, of course, there's one in here that there's probably 3 in here. People didn't remember. Oh, in fact, actually maybe 4. Avengers: Endgame, Shazam, Captain Marvel. Remember they made a Hellboy movie last year? There was a Hellboy movie last year.
Yeah.
Joker. Remember they made a Kitchen movie last year based on the Vertigo title?
Yes.
Yeah, I forgot about that. And they made a Polar movie last year. I don't even know if I remember that.
Polar wasn't in theaters, though. That was like Netflix, wasn't it?
It could have had a very limited theatrical run.
I just remember it showing up on Netflix, so that's where I watched it.
Maybe it was that short in the theater. Random Acts of Violence, Spider-Man: Far From Home, and Dark Phoenix. So 2019, there's some good movies in there and some bad. I think I counted. I think I saw like 50.
Did you have Spider-Man: Homecoming in there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was in there somewhere.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. Second to last one. I also counted 46 television shows.
I feel like you had to have missed some.
47, because I realized the list after I put it together, and the list that I pulled from, it didn't have Stumptown on it. I realized Stumptown wasn't on the list. Human Target, so it starts from 2010 and goes forward. Okay. Human Target 2010, Walking Dead. Arrow 2012, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. 2013, Gotham 2014, Flash, Constantine, those are all 2014. 2015, Agent Carter, Powers, iZombie, Daredevil, Lucifer, Dark Matter, which is the sci-fi show, Supergirl, Fear of the Walking Dead, Jessica Jones. 2015 is when shit started getting serious. 2016, Legend of Tomorrow, Preacher, Outcast. Man, that show got canceled. Yeah. Winona Earp. Let me go back to I got to go back a page here. Sorry. Let me go back to the bottom. Okay, I didn't have this on the list, but this is on one of the pages I was looking for. I've never heard of this. Nancy in Hell. It's apparently still going on. I don't know this show. I don't know the comic.
I know Nancy in Hell, the comic. I've seen it.
I think they're just maybe shorts. I don't think it's like a regular thing. Luke Cage, Legion, Riverdale, Powerless. That's a big asterisk on that one.
Yeah.
Iron Fist, Defenders, The Tick, Inhumans, The Gifted, Runaways, End of the Fucking World. That's the Netflix one, right? Based on an independent comic. Punisher, Happy, Black Lightning, Cloak and Dagger.
This is 2016, right?
No. Sorry, I'm in 2017, 2018 now.
Okay.
Cloak and Dagger, Krypton, Titans, Chilling Adventure of Sabrina, Deadly Class, Doom Patrol, Umbrella Academy, Swamp Thing, Boys, Pennyworth, Batwoman, Stumptown, and Watchmen. Again, it's very possible I missed something in that list, but I did try to pull from a few sources and go through Wikipedia and a bunch of other random stuff. So that's a lot of TV shows and comic books or comic book movies to watch. That is thousands of hours. Yeah. And again, I've seen a lot of those, not all of them, clearly. But now the fun one for you guys.
So we're guessing the number one comic?
These are the number one comics. I've ranked them from sales perspective from 10 to 1. And there's like 2 asterisks in this as well. And double the points if you can guess
sales and units sold?
Units sold through Diamond. So this all comes from Comic-Con.
Okay, through Diamond.
Okay, think events.
I mean, we've had a couple. Well, let me give you a couple hints. Okay.
I already know one.
They are all big. They are all either number ones or anniversary issues of some form, except for one. And I don't remember why it's on the list. And Brock will hopefully be able to answer this. I just forgot to look up why this is on the list. So the last couple of years, you guys should be able to remember.
I mean, the first one that comes to mind is Rebirth because it was priced pretty low. So if it's number of units,
it was not. Nope, dude.
I would have guessed that was on there too.
Number 1 is Star Wars.
Proc is correct. Number 1 is Star Wars. Now, the Diamond number, this is one of the 2 asterisks, the Diamond number sold was 1.073 million copies. However, about 400,000 copies of those went to Loot Crate, so the Diamond number to comic stores is about 600,000 copies, which is still fucking amazing. Yeah. Remember, that also includes 100-plus variant covers.
Jeez.
Okay.
Also, and multiple printings, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Yeah, variant.
Number ones.
So 2015, and that's 2015 was Star Wars number 1, by the way. So you got number 1. Come on. What was the last 2 years' books?
I mean, it's Detective and Action Comics.
Detective Comics 1000 is the number 2 book of the last decade at 574,000 copies sold. And that was 2019. 2018's Action Comics 1000 was the number 4 book at 504,000 copies sold. So you got 1, 2, and 4 off to a really good start. So you got a bunch of number 1s in here. You got and 2 anniversary issues.
Spider-Man?
There is a Spider-Man on this. 2014's Amazing... No.
Is it 1?
2014's Amazing Spider-Man number 1. That's the post... that's a post-spectacular...
Secret
Superior.
War?
No, it's post-Superior.
It's the post-Superior.
Roberto Ramos one?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
559,000 copies, and that is the number 3 book on the list. So you're good 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Either of the Batman number 1s on there?
No.
Snyder or King's?
No.
Okay.
Snyder, I believe, was number 2 that year, 2011. What would be the number 1 book of 2011 if Batman was number 2? It would have been higher if DC took my suggestion on the variant covers at the retailer meeting.
Justice League?
Justice League, New 52, number 1.
Oh, the Jim Lee issue.
2011 was the number 9 book, 230,000 copies. It would have been a lot higher if they took my suggestion.
But that's the thing that's throwing me off so much is it's the variant cover issue. Because a lot of the books that we're trying to name here were propelled a lot higher because of
Loot Crate.
10 covers and Loot Crate. And
well, how about we start with the number 10 book?
Okay.
It is from 2010. It's a number 1 book.
Put us out of our misery.
It's a number 1 book. It's a team book. It's a big writer. It probably had some variant covers, but not as many as it would have if it launched today.
Marvel or DC?
Marvel.
Avengers?
Bendis. Yep, Bendis is Avengers, number 1. Yeah, 175,000 copies. You know that would be like 28 variant covers today if that launched.
So what slots do we still need?
So we got 10. We got 9 was Justice League. Number 8 was from 2017. It's a bullshit of a book. It's real bad. We gave cases away at Free Comic Book Day.
Legacy.
Marvel Legacy, number 1, 305,000 copies for the number 8 book of the last decade. Number 7. This one I legitimately don't remember why it's on the list. Brock, maybe you can remember. It's I'm assuming some sort of anniversary issue. It is not a number 1. It's not a number 100. There's no round number. It was from 2013. It is one of the 2 Image comics on this list.
Oh, Walking Dead?
Walking Dead number 115.
Oh, that was the...
Is that the anniversary? Is that like the 10th anniversary issue or whatever?
Issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought that might be the case, but I didn't remember why. That was 329,000 copies.
Okay, what slots are still left?
So that's number 7. Number 6 would be from 2012, 1 year prior to Walking Dead 115. What would have been a year before Walking Dead 115?
Walking Dead 103.
Try 3 months prior to that.
100.
Walking Dead 100 is the number 6 book at 353,000 copies. Number 5. Okay. Number 5 is a giant asterisk because the reported number 1 book is Big Trouble in Little China / Escape from New York number 1 because that's a Loot Crate book. If Loot Crate sold 400,000 copies, this sold 420,000 copies in the direct market, meaning it sold 20,000 copies to comic book stores, which means it sold 400,000 copies to Loot Crate and is not the number 1 book. Sorry, Big Trouble in Little China. The number 2 book is the real number 1 book of the year. It's not good. It's a Marvel book. It's a number 1. It's a big event.
It was...
What year?
At Ryan Higgins, Ryan announced the book on Twitter.
Oh, Civil War 2.
Civil War 2.
Oh.
Number 1 at 391.
I forgot that even existed.
Yeah, I know, huh?
Hey, remember Civil War 2?
391,000 copies. That's 2016 Civil War 2 for the number 5 book of the decade. Ranking the top
what
books.
Year did that Walking Dead?
I should say it may not have actually been the number 5.
What year did that Walking Dead one drop? The 115.
2013.
Was that right after the show started?
Yeah. No, Walking Dead was like 2010, but it was like
that was the peak.
The 100
that was the peak because I think. Because the 100 had the boost, and
100 was huge.
Because that was
we did the opening with 100, but had all my copies on the wall. Remember? That was great.
That was the brand new story arc.
Yep. So you got number 4 was Action Comics. Number 3, 3 was Amazing Spider-Man, 2 is Detective, and 1 Star Wars. There's the number 1 book of each year in sales history
with some asterisks.
So again, like there could have been a book that sold over 175,000 was like the number. There definitely was, but these are the top books of their respective years, and then in order. So there's some good books in there and some not so good books in there. So if you take a look from 2010 to 2019, 2010. This for Comic-Con, 45.3 million comic books were sold. You go to 2019, 49.88 million comics were sold. There's definitely peaks and valleys here. 2016 was 59.8 million, so we've had, this. But again, you have Loot Crate, you have weird shit that kind of gets added in there. You have the Rebirth year.
The thing is the Rebirth year, that 2016 was a lot of double shipping.
There's going to be, remember, Marvel was double shipping all those books too. There's always weirdness in these charts. You really got to kind of look at long-term sales. In a decade, we're up 10% single issue wise from 2010 to 2019. That's fantastic anyway you cut it. Yeah. If you look from 2010 to 2019, the books over 200,000 copies, kind of ebbs and flows a little bit. There wasn't any in 2010, all the way up to the most 2015 had over 21 books at 200,000 copies. But again, some of those are Loot Crate books, right? Yeah. So that doesn't really count. Same with 2016.
Yeah, like Rocket Raccoon. Why is that even on the list?
Loot Crate or the Marvel box. So 2019, we had 8 books over 200,000 copies, which again, I think that's fantastic.
If it's the comic I think you're talking about, that was a good comic, though.
The Rocket one?
Yeah. Wasn't that the was it Scotty Young or who was doing it?
Yeah. Young,
yeah. That was a great comic.
There's probably a $1 book out there that somebody can find.
I don't know. I bought the trades.
Where was I going with this? I had something else in here.
I bought the trades multiple times. I bought the thin trade, and then I bought the bigger trade when they did
hoping
Rocket
beyond
and
hope
Groot.
that they'll do a hardcover.
They still could.
So there is a lot of books that were published 2019. Like I said, some good ones,
some duds.
But we're going to go around the table for a few minutes here and talk about some of our favorites.
You want to just do each person does one?
Yeah.
Go around?
Yeah, sure.
Brock, you've got a paper list. Why don't you start?
I got a paper list.
Brock put together a big list of some good
Brock
books.
did his homework. I want to just give a golf clap here.
I think before we start, let's actually go through our process here a little bit, because I know for me, I looked at all the top-selling books, I looked at graphic novels, I looked at my shelves, I kind of looked around and I said, I mean, I love some of these runs, but I was trying to think of the ones to me that stood out, a little special. Mm-hmm. Obviously, ease of rereadability is a strong one, and so when you have like a 50-issue run, it's a lot harder to reread, and there's going to be more peaks and valleys than, let's say, a 4-issue miniseries if it's fucking solid. Mm-hmm. So, at least for my list, it tends to actually be way more skewed towards miniseries and specials and stuff. Yeah. That doesn't mean I don't like these ongoing books. I love them. It's just these smaller runs, I think you can just get a little more. There's just an ease of quality in there compared to some of the longer runs. Like you asked me to pick my top 20, and it's a very different list from 6 to 20.
Yeah.
But I grabbed my top 5. So, Brock, what about you? Because you just wrote down a big list.
Yeah, so, I mean, the homework was given, and I went to a couple websites. Thank you for making it easy to go to those. And I kind of just went down the lists and, quickly going over the OGNs and the independents that I'm like, I don't even know what the heck this is. I started going, okay, that'll work. I'll put that on my list. Okay, that'll work. I'll put that on my list. Just compiling everything, and as I was doing that, other stuff would pop into my head, like, oh wait, I really enjoyed that, and so on and so forth. So it also came to the fact of like there were just like certain single issues that I really like. I mean, you could do a list of just what are the top single issues, so there's so much to cover. So 2 stood out. I'll talk about those later, but I think for me, I have a list of 6, but it's 5 because 2 of them literally are tied together. So I can't really separate them.
You can do those 2 together. That's fine.
And that would be Jeff Lemire's Animal Man and Scott Snyder and Charles Soule's Swamp Thing from the New 52. Like both of those were just amazing runs that kind of revitalized those characters. And
they literally cross over for like half their run.
Yeah, half their run. Yeah. Well, and not to mention that they're all part of the green and the red and like the rot and all this stuff. So it's like the whole universe that they created for Swamp Thing and kind of these, what's the word I'm looking for? Like Earth things, like the red and the green and the rot, and then they eventually had like the gray and they lantern colored it, but it was amazing stuff. And I really enjoyed it. So I thought those 2 for me, but like you said, long going series are harder to kind of,
but
these ones are a good chunk,
Yeah, they are shorter.
Yeah.
Kevin.
Oh,
I was done.
So sorry, I didn't want to step on your, so my list, I'm looking at the list and everything that's on here, I have a top 6. It can be a 5 with an honorable mention. My first process after looking at everything that came out was let me go to things that are not going to be like Saga would be one of my favorite comics of the decade. That's not on this list just because I was trying to focus on things that were either done. And I know this is not a criteria. This was just my criteria. Things that are done or were miniseries or standalone volumes. And so all of these are things that I have reread multiple times and I would always want to have on the shelf. Mm-hmm. So the first thing I'm going to pick, and right after I say I'm not going to pick Saga, I'm going to pick something that's been equally critically lauded with an Eisner and various other awards, which is the graphic novel My Favorite Thing is Monsters by Emil Ferris, which is in this store. Have I seen that in this store?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Which is a wonderful, just great book about this girl trying to solve the possible murder mystery of her upstairs neighbor in this apartment building. And the storyline behind this creation of this book is even as interesting as the book itself, where Emil Ferris, I can't remember what the it was like West Nile virus, I want to say, and she was basically bedridden for like a long period of time and could not do anything and just spent her time creating this book. And it took her 10 years to make this graphic novel. And it's a combination of written book, but every page is just covered with these just eye candy illustrations. It's just wonderful. I love this book. Again, not a niche pick because it's been well rewarded.
Sure.
So my criteria was a little more simple, just in terms of there's been a lot of good books, but I can definitely say my excitement for those books have waned over time. Like, a lot of it can have to do with how much I'd have to read and that kind of thing. But that's like one of the reasons why I have like Animal Man at home in my collection, but I'm not looking at my shelf going like, I want to pull that off the shelf and read it right now. I don't have the direct interest in that right now. But then you have books like Velvet, and I'm pretty sure I put Velvet on my top book every single year it was coming out.
Because it spanned about 3 years, that thing.
And
it was like a doomsday clock.
If I recall, it was like 18 issues or something like that. But it was great. I love sort of the spy thriller. I love the fact that it felt like it kind of came out of a James Bond type world, and the story was really, really strong. It had a very good, strong female lead. Makes a beautiful hardcover on my shelf.
Does Brubaker and Epstein?
That sounds right. I know it's Brubaker. I'm more of a writer.
I think
guy.
it's Epting.
Steve Epting.
But that book blew me away, and it nailed the landing. It just,
Well, I hate to say that my list is all too predictable.
You and I are going to have same things on our lists.
We have a few. I definitely have talked about a lot of these books regularly on this podcast. So again, when I went through the list, I was like, yeah, no, it's because these are my favorite books. But I'll start with the kind of the oddball, but I definitely gave a lot of praise to this book when it was coming out, and that is Mark Russell and Steve Pugh's Flintstones.
Yep, that's
is
one that was on my long list. Which
is just such an oddball book, and you just have to read it. I remember one of our customers, Brett. Right, we gave a copy to Julia, and she was just like, "No, I should have read the first volume." She's like, "I just can't read this. I can't deal with this anymore." It's intense. Yeah, it is a pretty wild reimagining of the Flintstones. So I never read. I didn't get a chance to read Snagglepuss. That's on a lot of people's lists, and I do want to sit down and read that. I got the trade. It's just been sitting there. I need to read through it. And I think
going into Second Coming, like Mark Russell's done.
Oh, he's fantastic.
Like, yeah.
But if you want to read a dystopian, but all too familiar,
it's not even dystopian because it's not. It's before
pre-topian.
It's before like
take on the Flintstones, and you want to feel fucking awful about yourself.
Religion people in there.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. Go pick up that Flintstones trade. There's 2 volumes available from DC. It's fantastic.
Okay, so for the next one for me, I mean, it's
and I should say these are really in no order for any of us.
Yeah,
just throwing them out there.
The next one for me is probably the most recent, just because it was just so impactful, and that was Doomsday Clock.
I'll just get my pick out of the way too, because Doomsday Clock's on my list too. Of course.
Yeah, I just couldn't. John's did so much with Doomsday Clock to just really kind of emulate more, bring his own style to it, and yet like just everything about that book was it paid tribute great to the source material, and yet took us somewhere like who knows where we can go from here. But it's one of those. Yeah.
Hopefully, based off our conversation from the last podcast, hopefully they go somewhere with it.
I mean, really, it's on my list, but down, on my long list. But that DC Universe Rebirth #1, just one shot. Like Doomsday Clock felt like a bigger version of it.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I mean, we won't go on about Doomsday Clock too much because we talked about it at length in recent episodes. But Kevin, imagine going back like 15 years and telling people, "Hey, one of the best superhero comics of the decade is going to be Superman, a 12-issue series about Superman and Dr. Manhattan punching each other, or getting ready to punch each other," and people would have aneurysms, right? They would have lost their minds. So, I would think, especially if you're a DC fan, Doomsday Clock is probably on a lot of people's top lists.
So I see my next pick is on Brock's long list. And Ryan, I'm going to get the Morrison out of the way here. So this series, more than any other superhero comic that I've read in this decade, it reminded me of the feeling of what it was like to be a kid discovering superhero comics, and that is Multiversity.
Multiversity is also on my list, so I'll get that out of the way as well.
I love this book. I have reread this book multiple times. I love every issue, and the highest compliment I could pay is I love every issue in a different way than the other. They all have a different flavor, besides the art being different. I mean,
one issue you can read backwards and forwards.
Yeah, that thing is brilliant. That's the Pax Americana. Yeah, that thing.
One has Hitler on the toilet and it's Jim Lee art. Come on.
Yeah. Oh, I can't say enough good things. It's just so filled with like creativity and joy, and even the Morrison haters. There's really not his usual super esoteric flights of fancy in this. It's like him.
The Just is the weak one for me in that one.
What?
The Just.
Which one was that?
Well, you're always going to have
the was it
the teenagers?
Social media
oh,
one.
I love that one
I
too.
fucking hate that one.
Anyway, Multiversity.
Yeah. Again, go back 5 years or whatever, and listen to this podcast. Me absolutely gushing about that Charlton issue. Right? It's
to add
mind.
on to that, I'm just going to slice one small piece out of a larger conversation because it's not mine to repeat on the air. I will say that being at San Diego 2 years ago with Dave Gibbons and some other people, Dave Gibbons was gushing about that Pax Americana issue and saying how he loved how it honored the spirit of Watchmen while still being its own thing.
Yep.
And that issue is great. The whole thing is great.
Yeah. It is like everything Morrison does. When you get to the end and it all comes together, he does it in Seven Soldiers. He did it in Final Crisis, but Multiversity might be the best that he for that style of these completely disconnected stories.
He set the roadmap of what we're in now with that so much.
Dilate, I don't know if you guys are current on Dilate, but
I'm
they straight up have the Multiversity map as like is like a regular thing in the ILH comic. It's really
I'm
cool.
waiting for the trade on that.
It's great. Multiversity is, it is at somehow both one of the most experimental comics I think I've ever seen, and also completely just stuck in DC continuity and history and dealing with some of the most safe things you probably could. Like, how could something be both extremes, right? Yep. It's old DC stuff through Morrison. Whenever I've had to think of them on my list of my favorite Morrison books, I always have like 7 number ones, right? But sometimes Multiversity squeaks to the top of that list. It's a damn good book. It is a damn good book.
It was like being a kid again for me. The first time reading a story that had Earth 2 and Earth 1 crossing over on Earth X, and you're just like, holy shit, what? Where's this been all my life?
Yeah.
That was like being an adult reading this.
Well, and for us, the recent Freedom Fighters came out of that.
Came out of that. Yep.
Came out of that Multiversity one.
Yep. I hope they do more of it.
And it was, and that was a really, really solid, 12-issue one.
Yeah. Charlie, hit us up with something. Hit us up with another book on my list.
It could be on your list, but I kind of doubt it.
Okay.
Silver Surfer.
You know what? I actually, if I had that 20 list or 10 list, it may have been on there. So you're talking about the Dan Slott.
The red one?
Fantastic.
Again, has a very clear beginning, middle, and end to the story. It is as close as Dan Slott will ever get to writing Doctor Who, probably.
Give him some time. We'll see. He'll move to England and work on Doctor Who if he has to.
He might have a hard time. So there was a report that came out recently because of the Lock and Key TV show and stuff, where Joe Hill appeared on a podcast basically stating that he was told he couldn't write for Doctor Who because he wasn't British.
Period.
Yeah.
Huh, okay.
Like he got a pretty blunt response from them when he sent in a pitch.
Wow.
BBC. Ooh.
Yeah. So, as I said, I wouldn't hold his breath.
Rare case too of a. Did anyone? There was no fill. Like there may have been like intentional other art in there, but was it all red start to finish?
Most.
Yeah.
Most
there was no fill-in issues in this. Is what I'm trying.
Not
to say.
that I can recall.
Yeah.
But no, as I said, it's on the sort of longer side compared to like some of these other miniseries and stuff, but it's very approachable in terms of it's not like. So, I have reread the Johns' Green Lantern stuff multiple times, but even now when I look at my bookshelf, it's just like I really don't have time to read like 6 omnibuses worth of material.
Only 6.
And it's a very manageable size with the Silver Surfer omnibus.
Yeah, and I think if you say top ongoing comics like 40 issues or more from the past decade, it would be a different list. Because I can take something like Multiversity and be like, that is such a perfect experience, right? Something like Tom King's Batman, again, it's not on my list, but give me a longer list.
If you're doing like top 5 series of the decade,
ongoing only, yes, it's going to be on there. But I look at it differently than say something like Doomsday Clock, right? Where it's smaller. It is huge in scale, but smaller in focus, so we can like really.
As I said, I feel like it's a size that's still very easily approachable to do rereads.
The longest thing on my list was Swamp Thing, which had like 40 issues and then like a couple annuals and then that Future's End.
Right.
Like, so there's, I mean, I don't even think it broached 50.
No, not the first one. Well, I'll take a pass because a couple of mine were already duplicated. So, Brock, go ahead.
You're going to duplicate again when I go, so just go.
Go for it.
No, you just go. It's okay.
All right, I'll get it out of the way. Mr. Miracle, no question.
On mine.
Tom King, Mitch Gerrard's Mr. Miracle.
It's on mine.
Also, again,
talked about it at length.
won't go on too much about this. If you're newer to this podcast, go back and listen to every other episode for the last 2 years. But
I think for me, it's returnability to reading. Like, I have read single issues, reread the single issues. I've read the softcover. I have not yet read the hardcover, but I've read it digitally as well. Yeah. So it's been out 2 years, and I've read it 4 times. So that's
pretty good.
It's just that it's really great.
Yeah. It is a rare book that stands shockingly well as a single issue. Every issue is a beginning, middle, and end, and obviously the whole right is greater than the sums of the parts. But every issue you could kind of just give to someone and be like, you could just read this. Like you don't have to know, because we never really know the whole story. We never like the background of the war and all that stuff.
Maybe the last 3 would be kind of hard to do that with.
For the most part, a lot of those are not that they are good standalone issues, but they are. It's tough to do that where you have one issue tells kind of a complete chapter of a story
I think
without like a lead into the next.
I think it's very rare. With Mr. Miracle, it's you can give anybody any issue and read it, and they get a solid chunk of a story.
Yeah,
and that issue makes them want to read everything that came before, and everything that comes after. And I think that's maybe where it shines a lot. I don't know. It's Eisner winning. It's Tom Hanks.
I want everything.
It gave us
cleaned up.
It gave us Batman Kills Babies. Dark Side is.
Yeah.
What else did it give us?
Dark Side is back. That's from Morrison. That's from Morrison JLA. Kevin, give us a 1-2 punch. I feel like you've got a couple. You're gonna have to.
Oh no! So
catch up on a few.
I'll just segue off Charlie's pick of Velvet and pick another Brubaker, which is Fatale, which I've been reading I read in trades, not as single issues. And the first trade, I thought, this is looks like a 40s noir detective story, which then becomes a horror story.
All right.
And which then is, and just to say, that's volume 1. Volume 3, I believe the cover has a woman in medieval armor with a sword. And you just go, at first, WTF, but it actually makes perfect sense and works, and I just love this book. It's real dark. It's my favorite. It's a Sean Phillips Brubaker collaboration. This is my favorite, although it's not criminal per se, This is my favorite of their collaborations. Fatale. There's my short blurb.
So I remember starting Fatale, and I kind of fell off of it at some point, probably when it shifted a little bit more towards the horror. But you putting it on your list makes me go, maybe it deserves another.
It's total of 5 trades. I know they have other formats.
Yeah, they put out some nice
but
hardcover
it's not
stuff.
Do they have a Charlie format?
It's not a massive
they have a
commitment,
nice
is my
hardcovers
point.
Yeah. So I'm going to get the second slot book off my list here, and that's Spider-Verse. Like, I really liked the big sort of pull in every version of Spider-Man you can think of into this, including some hilarious ones and some of the tie-in issues and stuff. I really liked the Spider-Verse event. And I was sort of sitting there looking at the list when people brought up like Superior Spider-Man and stuff, and I'm like, that was good, but I got more enjoyment out of Spider-Verse by far.
Well, and I think Spider-Verse affected real world with Into the Spider-Verse. And was that on my list when I did the movies?
No.
Actually, I don't think you mentioned it.
I don't think you did.
That's okay.
Yeah. But I just...
he's frantically going back to check.
And to kind of go back into
It's not. That's 72 movies.
part of a run, because, I mean, that kind of fed out of Superior Spider-Man back into
That was
Spider-Man.
that
then
was
back.
Roberto Ramos
Yeah.
run that started that one.
But it's one of those things where even though it's part of a run, it is a complete story you can just read. And it had the added benefit of making me kind of want to go back and read the Straczynski run, which nothing has been able to do since passed. I still couldn't bring myself to do it because it's since passed.
But that's a hell of a
wanted,
compliment that it tempted you.
But because it brought in some really interesting elements from the Straczynski run, it
Up until since past, it wasn't that bad. It's just that was awful.
it was great up until that arc, but like I have the hardcover still. I have never sold the hardcovers or anything like that. They're still sitting on my shelf because I know I like most of that run.
Yeah.
But there's those traumatizing issues.
But I literally would have to skip those issues if I was going to try and reread it. Like, and the funny part is it wouldn't affect anything if I just skipped those issues.
Yeah. Well, I will polish off the last of my list, and then you guys can finish up here with the rest of your picks. Because, again, should be no surprise.
Yeah, Jesus.
Easily on my top 5 list of the year is DC Rebirth, the one-shot by Jeff Johns.
It's on my list,
and,
but it's not on my top.
And a couple co-conspirators there. God bless Jeff Johns for keep trying to fix whatever the hell DC's doing with their continuity.
You read this across the pond.
As Toby likes to remind everyone, I read this on my honeymoon. Bought it digitally and read it on my honeymoon.
I hadn't heard that before.
What's that? Oh, you haven't? No.
For new listeners, what?
Yeah, for new listeners. And it's because it also go down in history as the worst podcast ever recorded. For
I
Comics
tried,
Podcast.
okay?
I know you. God bless you, Brock. God bless you for trying. But that book is incredible.
It's really good.
It is the heart of the DC universe. It's besides the crazy surprises of Dr. Manhattan and everything like that, just the what New 52 did, kind of unintentionally, just proved how important the legacy and history of DC is to so many of the characters. And John's not that it's rare that creators get it, but John's is rare that he's in a position, or he was in a position to actually do something about it and kind of try to course correct some of these things back. His again, no surprise to anyone listening that listened to me ever talk about comics. His handle in the DC universe is almost the top bar almost done. And he just, especially a character like Wally West and Barry and then the Flashes, he just gets those characters so well. And really why their disappearance, or Wally's disappearance in New 52 was so weird. Amazing panels. And then even dovetails back in the Doomsday Clock, right? I mean, kind of the beginning and end of it here. And Yeah.
We got the Three Jokers tease, but we haven't got that yet.
Well, we'll get to that eventually. So this year, 2020, that's the bet. So yeah, there's an entire episode. Go back to 2016. You'll hear 2016. Yeah, you'll hear an entire episode where I have to redefend this series and talk about how amazing it is for like 2 hours, or the issue, how amazing it is for hours. So we'll leave it at that. And then those are my favorite. I mean, yeah, I'm obviously very DC heavy. There's always going to be DC heavy, but those are my favorite comics of the decade. And yeah, again, longer runs would and should be on a more expanded list or a longer run list, but because those things are just they're shorter, they just pack that punch that it's hard to, there's no, it's all killer, no filler, as they say. There's not a bad issue in my mind in any of those runs. So
it's my first Marvel actually hits one of my lists.
Hit it.
And that's the Vision.
Oh yeah.
King.
Yeah.
Just
Vision would again probably be like it's easily one. I mean, I don't even think that's close. I think it is the best Marvel comic of the last decade. Yeah. I don't think anything.
Yes, it's Tom King took just that that. I mean, the magic that we got from Mr. Miracle, he poured it on in Vision, and
it came from Vision.
It came from Vision first, but like just the detail and the in depth and the just looking at the Vision under the microscope, it was just so amazing. I do not recommend reading the PvP whatever argument one issue while you're drunk in a bar. But again, I've reread Vision like 4 times.
Yeah,
in different formats just over the years since it come out. So again, that's one that's just readability again, just boom. And yes, I want it on my shelf, and I'm glad there's a deluxe size hardcover.
Just for clarification here, that recommendation of how not to read it is just because of the content of the issue, or because you did that?
Oh, I did that.
Okay.
And the content of the issue will fuck with your mind when you're drunk. Yeah, so.
Noted. Well, I'm going to put my last two together because they both, although they are not similar at all in content.
It's like the reverse of my list.
They both kind of push the format. So my first one is The Private Eye by Brian Vaughan and Marcos Martin, which was their digital-only, futuristic, dystopian private eye story that then they released in a weird like letterbox, like horizontal hardcover. It's just really fun, and the art is great, and it's an interesting kind of sci-fi future that I haven't really seen in comics before. My other one is something I mentioned on this show a few weeks ago, which is Building Stories by Chris Ware, which is less of a graphic novel than a box full of stories, and it's basically telling the individual stories of all the residents of this big apartment building. It is the richness of a great novel, but with the cool artistic experimentation of the best kind of comics all together in just a terrific package that you could go back to, because you are in charge of how you're going to read it. Since it's not laid out in pages, you assemble the story how you want to read it. So you could go back to it every year and get a new experience. It's just an endlessly giving gift.
Charlie?
Okay, so I'm going to cover my last two because that's how we're doing it now.
Are you done?
I got one more.
Oh, okay, and Brock will finish this off.
So my last two are the DC ones on my list. The other ones haven't been DC so far. The Wonder Woman Azzarello run for me was sort of like the best thing to come out of the New 52. I really, really enjoyed that whole run from beginning to end, and what they did with the mythology and sort of changing up the character. I thought all that worked, bringing in the new gods. I legitimately got excited for what was going on in that book, and not just sort of once or twice, but sort of constantly. The other one is sort of towards the end of is basically the end of the New 52, and that's the Justice League Darkseid War. That sort of John's big Justice League story, bringing in the Anti-Monitor and just almost kind of refusing to acknowledge the fact that New 52 had changed things, and even in the book acknowledging that things were still in flux. And even in like the worst conditions to a degree, Johns will always figure out a way to be like, continuity matters. And that shined in that book for me.
And that art in that, Jason Fabrock's art was so good.
Yes. So, and again, really nice hardcover on my shelf.
That should be the first criteria for all of these.
That's all of Charlie's criteria.
You'll notice every single one of the things on my list has a really nice hardcover on my shelf.
Brock, you have another on your
it?
My
I
last
just have an
one-
honorable mention.
No, mine was the last one. I combined it. Like Animal Man and Swamp Thing were combined because they were virtually tied together. So, last one on my list does not have a edition yet that would be Charlie worthy, and that is Fabio Moon and Gabriel Ba's Day Tripper. Just I think at the beginning of this podcast is when it like came out, and
it's really early.
And I just the praises of this book. It's an amazing story about just life. What happens if you died now? How would you be remembered? Where are you now? And if you died, like all of this stuff, and from issue to issue, it just has this deep, rich, just emotions running through it, and just everything about the book's amazing. Needs to have a goddamn absolute edition.
It's coming.
Hasn't it been solicited like 3 times?
It's coming. It's coming.
I've ordered like 3 times. But yeah, I've given it away as like Christmas presents, and it's one that it's just, you can pick it up, and it's not superhero related at all. I think it's the only Vertigo title on. It's a nice nod to Vertigo, being Vertigo died this decade.
Yeah.
But
And it's the only one that's been on anybody's list that was part of our book club.
Oh wow, the late great book club.
hey, Bryce
That started and ended this decade.
Bryce has even read this one, so
Whoa.
yeah, he borrowed my hardcover for years.
We are coming up on our decade too. 2011 is when we started. So, the Comic Conspiracy podcast has existed entirely in this decade. So, or this past decade.
Next month we turn 9.
Yep. A couple of our Patreon backers gave us their brief list. I didn't have a lot of time to put this together, so thank for these couple guys for their quick responses here. Verum Libertas says Moonshine is his favorite comic of the decade. That's a good one.
I read the first
No, I haven't read that.
10 issues of it. It's nice.
Yeah.
That's not bad.
Yeah. Zach Johnson says, for the best comics of the decade, I think it has to be the Rebirth comic and the line itself. Between Superman in Action, Hal Jordan, Green Lantern Corps, Batman, it's hard to find a time where DC had a better output. I agree.
Superman Rebirth has been
just great.
I mean, if you looked at Superman the decade prior, it was rough.
Yeah.
But with Tomasi and Gleason doing it's on my long list.
Yeah.
For things. But you have Tomasi and Gleason just pumping out that great stuff that they pulled they pulled Superman from Convergence. Woof, what that thing was. But yeah, and then now Bendis has taken over the reins, and it's best has been so.
Mr. Rama, big Hellboy fan, says BPRD has some of the best comics of the decade. And again, I've seen BPRD on plenty of people's lists. You know, Magnolia just keeps cracking that thing out. So, Southern Bastards would be on it if it ever gets an ending.
It's on my list.
Very good books from the past decade are also Doomsday Clock, Batman. I'm assuming both runs. What a decade for Batman, first of all. Let's just say between the Scott Snyder and the Tom King runs. Oof. Mamma mia!
Well, who was doing it before? Tony Daniel.
Tony Daniel. But, I mean, Morrison in the aughts, but yeah,
Tony Daniel was very talented. Well, Tony Daniel picked up after and kind of at least was carrying Batman into the Snyder stuff.
He says Isola, Criminal, and Marauders were all very good books. So I don't put that last one, but whatever. We'll go move on to the next one. Craig Anderson, his list. No order, but here's what I enjoyed the most. Batman Court of Owls run from Batman. Jason Aaron's Thor run. Hickman's FF and Avengers. After the second read, it takes a lot. And Hickman's FF, would be very high on my.
Agreed.
Less so on
Yeah.
his Avengers run, but Hickman's FF would probably be on like a top 10 list for me. That was a fantastic run. Slot Spider-Man run, especially Superior Spider-Man. Again, I'd probably put Superior on a top list too for ongoing series. Doomsday Clock. Also Doomsday Clock. Dark Knight's Metal. Morrison.
I do like how Doomsday Clark actually sounds like it could be the title.
Well, that's the title of the kid book for.
I was going to put this on my list, but I didn't because it so barely are there any issues in 2010. He says Morrison's Batman and Robin.
Yeah.
It's a cheat, but some of it fell in 2010.
Yeah, I was with this. I'm in the same camp.
Like the tail end of his run is in 2010. Morrison's run is like a 20. It's like an aughts title.
The third omnibus has been.
I can't wait. And he says, of course, the best was New 52 Legion of Superheroes. Just kidding. It was awful. And that is, is correct.
Pretty bad.
Do your worst with criticizing this list. I'm going to bind them all together regardless. Well, I mean, your list is most of our list's top books as well for like ongoing stuff, and I mean we've all talked at length about all these titles. So
I'm just picturing one book with all them bound together.
It's like a giant. It'd be like the Book of Destiny, where Craig has to carry it around, chained to his wrist.
5,000 pages. Just grab a stack of dollar books and bind these together for no order, just in this order.
If you do actually do that, you have to bring it to Comic-Con some year.
Yeah, with your hooded robe.
And that is 2010 to 2019. That is a decade. That's a lot of comic books, the comic movies. Again, if I missed Spider-Verse, I clearly missed a few others. So I swear I put that on. I wonder if my Gmail didn't, my Chrome didn't
It's because you hated it, remember?
Well, yeah, that's true.
Because there's a couple on my log
Thor
list.
Ragnarok. Did I put that on this list? Oh, okay.
There's a couple on my list that the Superior Foes of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But that one was amazing, which gave us his Ant-Man run, which was also fantastic. So,
Expensive stuff was really good.
Yeah. You got Flashpoint was in there.
Flashpoint was, top 10 miniseries. I like Flashpoint a lot, but it didn't hit the highest for me as the rest of them.
Yeah.
Is that it?
No, I mean, I got a ton of honorable mentions, but I'm not going to.
No, I think we're good. We're good.
Yeah, that's a good sampling of titles.
Yeah. Thank you, Kevin, for bringing something that wasn't a superhero comic.
Hey, I had Day Tripper.
Expanding the list a little bit.
Did you have something that wasn't a DC?
No,
Okay,
no, of course not.
Did you even have? Can you even give us one indie comic? One,
like
for
from the past
decade? That's not Saga.
It's okay. You can steal mine.
I mean, I could give you a bunch that I liked. I don't know that too many of them they wouldn't be on my top 5 of the decade, but I've read a good chunk into Walking Dead. I mean, I didn't read the whole thing, but I read a good chunk into what would have been our last decade. Even stuff from the last couple of years. I think I'm just talking I read Something Is Killing the Children.
Yeah.
I mean, that one just started, right? But I really like that so far. What was good? There was some other random stuff from the last. I didn't get very far into Criminal, but the early stuff, I read the first batch, the first trade worth, that was really good.
And those standalone graphic novels of the last couple of years have been really good.
Yep.
Junkies and Bad Weekend.
I read the Junkies one. That was really good. I didn't read Bad Weekend yet, but I read the first one. Might be some other stuff. I mean, I'm sure there's some Vertigo books that I'm missing. That's probably it. I mean, a lot of the Brubaker stuff I keep up with. I mean, my stack of underrated indie trades is it's out of control. I don't even.
Sorry, Lane couldn't make it because my honorable mention I think would be on Lane's list, which is East of West.
Yeah.
Now I've been reading it in trades. He's been reading it, I believe, as issues.
Single issues is.
Yeah, but I think it's so imaginative. It's so
good.
Cool.
It's good. It ended really well.
I don't say anything. I'm waiting for the last trade.
It suddenly ended. Here's the last issue.
So you guys all have 9 years and 10 months to start prepping.
Making your list now
for your
Batman, Catwoman,
and a 20.
So yeah, I was going to say
you
3
could have
Jokers.
You could have the list put on your VR chip that's implanted in your head by the time the next
thank you all for listening. And if you're on the
list when I could have the issues, and that
that's
could
true.
be like reading the issues while we're
Yeah.
if you're on the regular Patreon feed, there's nothing more. This is the end of it. If you're on the regular podcast feed and you're listening to this, of course, remember to subscribe if you haven't, and go check out all the rest of those episodes that are up there. And if if you're listening to the regular episode of this, there's another episode of the Comic Conspiracy waiting for you. It's out at the same time as this, so make sure you go listen to our traditional episodes as well. And always send us your thoughts. Give us an email. What was your top books of the past decade? Maybe I'll read some of the stuff on the some lists on a future episode of the podcast.
Well, maybe next decade if we're still doing this.
This decade.
No, next decade.
We'll go back 10 years.
We'll go back 10 years and
read your top lists in 10 years. It's more likely, actually.
Well, next month we have to do an email from the first month that we did it.
I don't have anything that far back.
Okay.
I would have bet not much, but maybe like 25 cents of a title that would have been on your list, Sandman Overture.
I was looking at it. I like it. I need to reread it.
Okay.
Because I read it again in singles when it was coming out, and it was like
It's way better as a collected book.
I never reread
Way
it.
better.
Right. That's
You know what's funny is last year I reread from 2018 to 2019. I reread Sandman.
Mm-hmm.
I did not reread Overture.
You should. Yeah. I mean, I liked it, but without reading it kind of in one sitting, I feel like that is the correct way to read that because you don't get much out of each issue. So, all right, that is it. We will catch everyone next week. Goodbye.